Okay, so we are recording and we are live. My name is Jared Sparr, and I want to thank you, everyone, for joining us and welcome you to our Getting Started presentation. This is the module with the insiders, tips, and tricks on getting started in your restaurant business. I think there's a lot of overlooked subjects and a lot of mistakes that new owners make, and we want to get you the insiders information to help you avoid those mistakes and the costs that are associated with them. Um, I think one of the big ones is that a lot of restaurant owners try and save money by doing a lot of things on their own. And the reality is there's a ton of knowledge out there for you, and the cost of that knowledge is nothing compared to the money that it can save you if you actually work with the right people. Um, One fact I want to kind of give out really quick is that every year 9,000 restaurants fail in their first year of business. And it's a very true and a startling statistic that we got from American Express. And that's part of the reason why we developed the Restaurant Business Advisors Group and the video series that you're watching so that you can succeed and not be one of those restaurants that fail. And for more information on us, the Restaurant Business Advisors Group, you can go to our website. It's restaurantbusinessadvisors.com, where we have training videos on everything from financing to how to get your liquor license to how to get started in the business, and everything from contractors to POS systems. So everything you need to get a jump start in your business and get ahead of the curve will be there at that website for you. And I just want to start by saying my name is Jared Sparr. For whatever reason, it's not popping up here. There we go. Um, I'll be your presenter today. I am the founder of the group, and my specialty is cash flow. I have a tagline I like is I'm the life preserver for your cash flow. So that's how I help my customers. And our guest today is Mark Hodrick. Did I say that correct, Mark?
Yeah, Mark Hodorek.
Hodrick. Okay, I was hoping I would get that right. Mark's contact information is on the screen. And Mark, if you could tell me a little bit about your background, how you got started in the industry, and what you're going to kind of go over a little bit for us today.
Sure. Hi, Jared, and hi, everybody. Yeah, I started my working career in the food service industry. I was a counter person at a butcher shop and a deli, and then I worked as a grocery store stock person, and I worked at a sandwich shop as a food service worker, and then I became the shift manager there. And then I went to the Wayne State University and was a medical microbiologist and biomedical researcher there. It was in my years as a master's, bachelor's and master's degrees there. And then I went back into food service because I really liked interacting with people. So I began working at the Macomb County Health Department in the food protection program. And I've been there for 22 years now. And I conduct food service establishment inspections and investigate consumer complaints and illnesses, and I teach food safety classes there. And over the years, I've gotten a few certifications. I'm a HACCP certified food service manager, a National Environmental Health Association food safety professional, a Michigan registered sanitarian, and a ServSafe food safety trainer. So
Holy
I've been in it
smokes.
for a while, and I really enjoy the industry.
Yeah, a lot of background. So you're bringing a lot of knowledge to our clients today. I appreciate you being here. First question I have is, as a brand new restaurant owner, I think there's a lot of things that are circling in their brains of, the layout, of the location, of the menu, there's so many different questions. Can you tell me what's the most important thing for them to start with and kind of build from?
Okay, well, you got to start with the location, and you want to match the location or facility to your menu and to your needs. For example, in rural areas, you have to consider the source of the water system and the size of the septic field for your waste discharge. You know, restaurants, commercial facilities like that, you're going to use a lot of water and you're going to generate a lot of wastewater, so the field has to be sized appropriately. Um, and then in the building, you have to look at the size of the dining area and compare that to the number of customers you want to serve during peak rush periods. A lot of places I see, they're get into a business and they find out, gosh, my dining room is just not big enough for my rush hour, and I could make so much more money if I would just have a bigger place. So consider that. You have to check your local municipality's requirements for public restrooms. Uh, I think in some cities around Detroit area, they're looking at around 12 seats. You have to have a public restroom if you have more than 12 seats.
Okay.
So, for the places that are just looking for carryout in a small dining area, make sure you have a public restroom and check with your municipality on that figure. Um, also, make sure you have enough cold storage and dry storage space to accommodate the amount and the type of business you propose. Um, Kitchen ventilation is very expensive to install or modify, so make sure that fits your needs if you're getting into a place that's got a ventilation system. And then the transition of taking over a food service operation that's presently running is much less expensive and time consuming than starting a new one. So you might want to just take over a business that's already up and running um, to see how you like it before you spend the big bucks and go into building a building for yourself.
Yeah, definitely, because I think there's a lot of things that are just the unknown factor that make a big difference. All right. All right. So kind of walk me through, what's the process of getting started in a restaurant? Where should someone start?
Okay, sure. Well, you want to apply to the correct licensing agency. So if you wanted to start with a go into a restaurant business, you'd want to go to your local health department. But if you want to do something like retail operation, like make food for packaging and retail sales, or for food wholesale production, you'd want to go to Michigan Department of Agriculture or USDA. But for a restaurant business, you want to go to your local health department. Um, there, you want to submit your plans and your forms and your fees before beginning any construction or purchasing any equipment or before beginning operation. So you'll see that they will guide you through the process and save you a lot of money uh, by doing things right the first time. So don't wait, get the application and the paperwork in right away. Um, Also, the approval process may take a couple weeks up to a couple months. So you want to get that ball rolling. And then once they give you the approval for the construction and to buy that equipment, then you know you're doing the right thing. And you're not going to install some sink that is not approved and you have to tear it out and put a new one in. So do that right away. Include your plans of your proposed kitchen drawn to scale. Doesn't have to be a professional architect that draws it up, but has to be to scale, like 1/4 inch equals 1 foot or some scale like that. Include a list of your proposed equipment so that they can check to see that equipment is going to be right for your operation. Include a proposed menu. So think about what you want to have on your menu, and you have to include your menu so that they can see what type of equipment and how big of a facility you'll need based on your menu. And finally, you're going to have to include standard operating procedures developed for your operation. And those are basically the way you would do things, the way you would wash dishes, the way you would clean, what times of the day you would clean, where you would store your raw meat, where you would store your cooked product, all those operating procedures. You have to kind of think through this. And they have forms that you fill out that kind of guide you through this process.
So it's not as difficult as it sounds, because that was going to be my next question is where can they get information like this? But it sounds like the forms will pretty much guide you and make it a lot easier.
Yep, that's what they're there to help. They're there to help you.
Perfect. All right. So what food safety knowledge is required when someone opens up a new operation? I was talking to someone else that there's actually has to be someone on staff that's certified. I think you can tell us a little bit more about that.
That's correct. Well, to start, excuse me, to start with, you want to make sure you're educated. So everybody will tell you to first
Uh-oh.
modified food code. That's the law that we presently operate under. You can get that on the michigan.gov/agriculture website. So you can obtain a copy of the food law. You can also get it from your local health department. Read over that. You'll see what the requirements are it helps to know about the requirements up front. Uh, Also, like you just said, at least one managerial staff person must pass the required certified food protection manager class. So
Okay.
you want to have somebody pass that class. You can't even open up until you have a person in your operation that has that certificate. So you might as well start in right away and have somebody pass that class. Let them share the knowledge with you and with the other people in your operation. And finally, basic food safety training is required for all food handling employees as it applies to the operation. So the person that goes to the class, and it may be you, it may be the owner, is the one that hopefully sticks around for a while, because when you lose that person, you have to replace them with another certified person. But they are also the one that conveys that knowledge to the rest of the staff. So you have to do some a little bit of training to your employees, and it has to apply to the operation, meaning if you have an ice cream shop, then you don't really need to know the proper storage of raw meat because it doesn't apply to your operation. But everything that does apply to your operation, you're responsible for, and the person that's taking the class is the one that covers that with the rest of the staff.
And I'm gonna apologize because I want to have you repeat that number one, that first thing. Your microphone kind of cracked out a little bit. So the first thing was to obtain a copy of which code?
The 2009 Michigan Modified Food Code.
Okay,
That's the present law that we operate under in Michigan. It takes a couple years to get around to adopting the federal food code. And so in 2012, Michigan adopted the 2009 Michigan Modified Food Code. And that's what you want to get a copy of. And so you'll know that's your food Bible. That's what
gotcha.
you want to keep around the restaurant and then follow that.
All right. And then we know, what does the health department look for? And kind of talk us through the menu review, because the menu is kind of like your starting point for everything. So, kind of walk us through that a little bit.
Yes, that's correct. You want to come up with your menu before you start any of this process. Think about what kind of operation you have and what you want to serve, and have that menu written out. You submit that with your original plans to the health department. And what they're looking for is the type of menu items you have. For example, your cook to order menu items, hamburgers, frozen chicken wings, things like that that are frozen and then deep fried. Those are the lowest risk foods. So they're the safest because the heat kills the germs. So there's a kill step right before you serve it to the customer. So those are actually the things that they will consider the least. They will look at
Hmm.
the least. The cook to serve menu items. Another group of foods are the ready-to-eat foods. Those are the foods that don't get cooked anymore. So those are your salads, your cakes, um, cold cuts, things like that, sandwiches. And those, you have to make sure you have protected storage for those type of things. You have to have, sanitary surfaces for preparation of sandwiches and cutting cake and things that aren't ready to eat. You want to protect them from any bare hand contact, so you got to use gloves or uh, deli paper or spatulas or spoons. And then those items may need temperature control as well. Another group of foods are foods that require multiple ingredients or multiple cooking steps, and these are exposed to the most contamination. So you can imagine the more you handle the food, the more likely it is there's going to be contamination. So preparation and storage modifications might be required of your establishment if you have a lot of multiple step cooking step foods on your menu.
Okay.
Another group is the customer self-service foods. If you're going to set out a buffet or a salad bar, there's obviously protection that's going to be required, customer protection shields. And also you might have to have temperature protection there, temperature monitoring for the foods. And then finally, foods that can be served undercooked are also considered ready to eat, so those have to be protected from any raw meat juices or any other contamination. And they will need consumer advisories on the menu. So we're talking about hamburgers. If you want to serve those cooked to order, you will have to have on your menu a consumer advisory. So those are some of the things that the health department will consider when they review your menu and look for in your proposal for your operation.
Yeah, and one thing that you kind of covered a little bit too was the overlapping of the inventory items. And we talked about menu design in one of the interviews, and I thought that that was really insightful that, when you design your menu, overlapping items so that one, of course, you can, keep less inventory, but then your inventory is also going to turn over quicker and it's going to be, less expensive and more efficient for your business. So I think the menu design is really important when it comes to planning a restaurant.
That's right. And also, with the way the foods companies run now, you can get a couple orders per week delivered. So you don't have to store as much as you did in the past. And you can obviously get fresher food out that way as well.
Which is good because I think that makes a big difference as far as spoilage goes. At a restaurant with everything being perishable, well, not everything, but a lot of things being perishable, you can quickly lose money if you don't have the customers ordering what you have on stock. So, all right, what is considered when you're doing the kitchen layout? Because that's like the second step as far as efficiency goes and as far as speed goes for the customer as well.
Okay, so we talked earlier about having a plan drawn to scale. And so that's what the health department will look at is your proposed layout. And they're probably going to look for a few things like your storage areas should be located near your delivery door so that you don't have your delivery person wheeling the carts through the entire kitchen where the salads are being made and where the foods are being prepped. You want to have your storage located near your delivery doors. They're going to look at the cold storage area to make sure that it's adequately sized and it allows separate storage for your raw and your ready to eat foods. So depending on how complicated your menu is, if you have a lot of things that are going to require refrigeration, the health department will consider, do they have enough cold storage space? And if you do have a lot of raw foods and ready to eat foods, vegetables, for example, you got to have enough space to store the raw separate from the ready to eat foods to prevent cross contamination. Um, so they're also going to look at, this is an important point, the upright coolers and the walk-in cooler are considered your cold storage. So they're going to measure the cubic feet of cold storage that you have. But your prep top coolers, your point of use coolers, your pizza and your sandwich coolers are not
Mhm.
considered cold storage. Those are more of a transient type cooler and not meant for long-term storage. So those are not included in your cold storage calculation.
Interesting.
Dry storage is also something they're going to be looking at, dry storage areas, dry storage shelves. Again, it has to be adequate for the type of operation you're proposing. And a thing to note is catering and carry-out service would require more storage because you have more containers, food containers that you need to store. Um, so those things are going to be looked at. So you need more storage for those items. And you need separate areas for where you wash your vegetables and where you store your raw meat and where you process those foods. You can't be obviously processing vegetables and raw meat in the same area at the same time. So
Hmm.
they're going to make sure you have adequate washing and processing and storage areas for vegetables and raw meat to keep those separate. Um, and then overall, they're looking so that the kitchen is designed to minimize contamination between prepared foods and raw meat juices and soiled dishware and trash. So they want to make sure that the prepared foods are not subject to all those other types of contamination. They're going to look generally at your walls and floors and ceilings to make sure that they're smooth and cleanable. Um, They're going to look to make sure that any bare wood is going to be painted. Your floor tiles are smooth and cleanable. Um, the walls, a lot of times I see FRP used,
Hmm.
fiberglass reinforced plastic walls. Again, and no bare wood. And ceiling tiles are usually, they want those to be the vinyl coated tiles. And then lighting, you want to make sure your lights are all shielded in food storage areas. So light shields over all the lights in the food areas, and that you have adequate lighting so that you can clean and you can see what's going on. Basically 20-foot candles in preparation areas and 10-foot candles of light in storage areas.
Very specific. There's a lot of information that I think people don't understand that they need up front, so it's good to consult with someone going into it. Okay, so what is considered when you're approving the food service equipment? I mean, we've talked about the menu, we've talked about the kitchen, and now we're kind of talking about what goes into the kitchen. So tell us about what we need to look at when we're actually kind of looking at the kitchen and the layout and the equipment itself.
Okay, so your equipment from your spatulas to your big flour mixer to your ovens, it all has to be approved for commercial food operations by a third-party rating company like NSF, UL, or ETL, and that that equipment is smooth and cleanable. The thing those companies look for is operation, make sure that the coolers can maintain efficiency. Um, they look for things like the compressors of a cooler run 70% of the time and rest 30% of the time, holding the interior box at 41 or below. Uh, Non-commercial or residential equipment is not that heavy duty. Also, they look for things like the corners of the equipment have a quarter-inch radius so that they can be wiped out easily and no dirt can get stuck in the nooks and crannies. They make sure that the metal doesn't uh, push any kind of contamination into the food. It's got a coating on it that is isolated from food. It doesn't leach into the food. They make sure that all the lights have shields in, like we talked earlier.
Hmm.
They make sure that the legs are nice and narrow where they contact the floor so you can sweep around them pretty easily and there's not a big area where dirt will accumulate. Better yet, they'll approve equipment that is on casters, so that is nice because it can be moved away and cleaned behind. Um, Ventilation hoods and makeup air are reviewed and they make sure that they're adequate and also balanced. And that's a big thing is the makeup air. Ventilation sucks air out of your restaurant, smoke and grease. Makeup air adds the air back into your restaurant. And you want that to be balanced so that there's a little bit of positive pressure inside the building so that, when you first open up your exterior door, the bugs are blown out and not sucked into your restaurant. Um, Water heaters, they're going to make sure that they're sized to the right capacity so that the amount of sinks and the amount of equipment that you have is supplied with hot water during your peak demand time. So they make sure that that's the right sized correctly. Sinks, there's a lot of sinks in restaurants, as you probably know. For
Hmm.
hand sinks, we're looking at every 20 feet, you got to have a hand sink in the food preparation area. You need vegetable wash sinks if you're going to be washing and cutting vegetables. You need 3 compartment sinks for washing dishes. You need a mop sink now, and that's something that's come up with the new 2012 food law. Is a
Hmm.
mop sink is now required, where you dispose of your mop water separate from hand sinks or vegetable sinks or toilets or anything. You have to have a mop sink now in your facility, and they're also looking at the installation of those sinks so that the drains from the vegetable prep sink and the utensil washing sinks are either have an air break or an air gap. Air gap is a space between the drain line where it ends and the floor drain. We call that clear water waste, so that um, if the sewer was to back up, that sewage would not go back up into that sink where you prepare your food. It would maybe spill out on the floor through the floor drain, but it wouldn't go back up into the sink. So they're looking for air gaps in the plumbing on the sinks. Um, Storage areas for personal items and chemicals and maintenance tools and trash. You got to have adequate storage for those things to keep those separate from your food operations. And then in the case of customer self-service bars, they're making sure that there's food shielding to the right dimensions so that the average height person would not, spray the food if they sneezed or coughed. And also, if there's sinks near food preparation areas, they have shields so that when you're washing your hands, you're not splashing germs onto the cutting boards nearby or whatnot. Um, and then, so there's a lot. There's a lot that they look for in the equipment, and so those are some of the examples that I could think of that they look for.
A lot of little details that make a big difference. All right. So, this is the more I think I learn, the more I realize of how much I don't know. um, what's the best way to find a professional to help me kind of walk through this process if I was a new restaurant owner?
Well, kind of to review what we've talked about so far, you want to start by deciding what type of food operation you're going to have, develop your menu, shop for a location based on your needs, and educate yourself. Get that copy of that food law, the 2009 food law. And there's some good resources out there. The Michigan Food and Beverage Association and the Michigan Restaurant Association websites are really good resources. But you first of all have to decide what you want to do and kind of stick with it. Um, think about the big picture, what you want your restaurant to be like, what types of foods you want uh, to have to serve. Best is not to try and do it all. Pick a theme, stick with that theme, and uh, and try and be good at a few things than rather than trying to do a lot of.
Uh-oh.
Look at those websites for the
Go.
Michigan Food and Beverage Association and the Michigan Restaurant Association. And then we also mentioned michigan.gov/agriculture. That website has a lot of information about licensing requirements. Again, michigan.gov/agriculture. And then you'll see food safety, click on that, and there's a ton of information there. Then you can locate a food safety consultant in your area. You can either do that by referral or on the internet. Um, Depending on the type of operation you're going into, if you're just taking over something that is already existing, there's not much to work to be done. A couple $100 and they take care of you. But if you're going to start a new restaurant from scratch with a complicated menu, that might be up to $2,000 for a food safety consultant.
So it's really not that expensive. I mean, in comparison.
There's a lot to know, that's for sure.
All right. So, I mean, we've talked about a lot of information. We've talked about site selection, food licensing, knowledge requirements, menu review, kitchen layout, equipment. So, I think that, like I said, there's a lot that we've talked about, but there still might be a lot of questions that are out there. So, tell me, what is the best way if someone does have some more questions to get in touch with you to get more information?
Well, sure, I'm in the southeastern Michigan area, and my email is up there on the screen, Mark Hodorek, that's MarkHodorek at yahoo.com. You can shoot me an email anytime. My business phone, 586-925-5164. You can call me during the day. Um, and best of luck to all the Michigan food industry entrepreneurs because that's what's keeping our economy going, and that's why I really like the food service and food industry businesses, and I'm really interested in supporting them with the knowledge that I have, try and make your lives a little more easier.
Great. I really, truly appreciate your time today, Mark, and all the knowledge that you brought to us. So, with all that said, thank you very much for coming on with us today.
Okay, thanks a lot, Jared, and good luck, everybody.
All right. See ya.